We join together this morning as we accompany Laura Susan Smith to her final resting place. I'm Rabbi Ellie Molbaum, and I serve on the clergy team at Congregation Mishkan Or. I'm honored to be here with all of you as we join together in loving memory of Laura. We know that there are friends and loved ones joining us here and in this space and on live stream from all corners of the world. Laura loved to travel and built connections each stage of her life's journey. We know there are folks tuning in from Israel, Canada, Amsterdam, New York, Maryland, Boston, D.C., Seattle, and more. Wherever you're joining us from, please know how much Laura's family appreciates your presence. Laura shared the same Hebrew birthday as her brother and her mom, and died 26 years and 2 days after her mom. She's lovingly remembered by her brother and sister-in-law, Howard and Barbara, her nieces and their partners, Jessica and Jesse, Rachel and David. Her grandnephews and nieces, Hudson, Marlo, Henry, and Amelia, were the joy of her life. She was preceded in death by her parents, Isidore and Mickey Smith. As a part of her last will and testament, she left a beautifully handwritten note of gratitude to her family and friends. There she reflected on her 4 grandchildren and her hopes that their parents will help keep their memory alive by speaking of the fun and joy they shared together. Laura wrote about her many relatives and friends and how much meaning, support, and care you've all provided to her, the way you each enriched her life. She finished her heartfelt tribute with, "You were so precious to me." Today, as we remember Laura, we take stock of all that was precious in her life. Today we tie our hearts and our memories together and offer comfort to those who knew and loved her. Mourning is a time filled with many emotions, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with a recitation of poetry, psalms, and prayers, thus linking Laura's life with the millennial-old tradition of the people of Israel and the eternity of God. Our sages teach us that mourning is the price we pay for having the courage to love others. Even in grief, we know that the wonder of human life is too complex and too magnificent to be memorialized in endless pain. The gifts of spirit our loved ones gave us cannot be measured or weighed, nor can they be lost or even tarnished by time. Even in our darkest hours, we know that some of their light and their warmth will always be with us, bringing comfort and courage, and in the fullness of time, healing and peace. We learn that death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest is better than constant sickness. Let us not seek to understand what is too difficult for us, nor search for what is hidden, nor be preoccupied with what is beyond, for we have already been shown more than we could comprehend. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, are our few days in eternity. The good things in life last for a short time, but a good reputation endures forever. I'll share now a story from our sages. A child asked, "Tell me of life." And the sage answered, "Life, my child, is a mystery. We do not ask to be born, nor do we even understand the meaning of birth, of creation. We grow and experience life's pleasures and pains. We love, and slowly, oh so slowly, we come to realize that we have become, that we are. At that moment, we humble ourselves before the mystery of life and quietly say, though I knew not, I have been granted the most precious gift of all, the gift of life." So the child asked, "Tell me of death." And the sage answered, "Death, my child, is a mystery. It is the inevitable return of the gift of life, the gift which came free to us. We live as the trustee of that mysterious being, that unexplainable becoming. Yes," the sage said, "you and I are but the trustees of life. We nurture it, we delight in it, we give of it to others. And at the appointed time, we sadly, yet with pride, return it from whence it came. The beauty, my child," said the sage, "is that what we are, what we have become, remains long after the gift has been returned. It remains as a precious keepsake with our loved ones who live on." Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. Life is a journey from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then, perhaps, to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until, looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. Life is a journey, our sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Ecclesiastes, Kohelet wrote, "The eye never has its fill of seeing." Young or old, all those who depart this life never see enough of the world, never complete their task, never cherish their loved ones enough before they are called home. How they yearn for yet another respite from the final summons, and how we yearn to have them close to us for yet another challenge in our lives, yet another joy to share, yet another precious moment together. God, be now with those whose hearts are broken because whenever parting comes, it comes too soon. Console them at this moment. Be near to them when light seems distant. Sustain them, O God, until the time of healing. These words from Psalm 23. Adonai ro'i lo echsar, bin ot desha yarbitzeni, alme menuchot yanahaleni, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'ma'agle tzedek lema'an shemo. With God as my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, restores my soul, guides me in straight paths for the sake of God's name. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. And from Psalm 121. Esa einai el heharim, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai, osei shamayim va'aretz. Al yitain lamot raglecha, al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha. Al yad yeminecha, al yad yeminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka, ve'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzeitcha uvoecha, me'ata ve'ad olam, me'ata ve'ad olam. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard your going and coming, now and forever. We move now from words of our tradition into words of memory. So, Howard, you'll share words from Stanley first, and then we'll hear memories from Rachel, and then Howard.
So when I woke up this morning, it was 7 below zero. So I want to warmly thank everyone here who has come in person and those of you who are joining online to celebrate Laura's life. I'll begin today by reading a few words that my cousin Stanley wrote about Laura as he's unable to attend. So this is what Stanley wrote. To my dearest departed Aunt Mickey and Uncle Izzy, thank you for giving all of us the gift of Laura. To my loving first cousin, Laura Smith, I love you. I cry now because I cannot be with you for your final journey. I am beyond heartbroken that I am not there. However, I smile with all the great memories that we had and the fond, warm memories that will continue for the rest of my life. I remember so many things from our years growing up. The weekend trips, almost every weekend, that our families traveled 1.5 hours from Cleveland to Lorain and then back from Lorain to Cleveland so our families could be with each other. And importantly, how we grew up more like sister and brother than just cousins. The birthdays, seders, bar and bat mitzvahs, the closeness and the warm feelings we had together. It certainly was amazing, and our fathers got along so well. The bad. The continuing difficult health situations that our families had to pull through. Your mom's brain tumor, your dad's heart disease, my dad's passing away, and then your dad's passing. It seemed never ending. Then your health situation. But through those terrible circumstances, we continued to be close. The following will only be recognized by a few in our family. It's the end of a long joke, a story that we would tell time and time again when we were younger. It's a silly joke, but the punchline was, so Spenjolson had a fall from the boat, but he was used to hardships. And we laughed and we'd laugh, and we told that joke for years. But Laura, your hardship was your health, and we did not laugh. Unfortunately, the gift of health was not granted to you. However, did anyone ever hear you complain? No. Did you grumble? No. Did you whine? No. Instead, you pushed through, always looking forward and ahead. You, Laura, were an incredible person, incredible trooper, always positive, always ready to go, always planning, preparing for your next trip. You certainly loved traveling overseas. You, Laura, created an incredible independent life for yourself, living in various cities and finding, finally, your place in Chicago. You were given opportunities and you took advantage of them. Arts, theater, entertainment, and a Jewish life. Just a few weeks ago, I was so excited to call you from my car when Howie and I drove to Sheffield Lake and then into Lorain. When we parked in front of our former home, 330 Haddam Drive, I called you with delight, knowing that it would provide you with a visual of the past and a smile remembering fond times. I'm signing off now, but using the saying that I frequently used when I called you to say hello. Hi, Laura Susan. This is your first cousin. And now I'm going to let Rachel say a word, and then I'll be back.
Laura was a kind, loving, intelligent, determined, strong Smith girl. That was our motto that we made up years ago when I was in college, and we continued to use it often as the years passed by. Laura was lucky in many ways, but unfortunately she had many health problems in the last 15 years. Every time she was hospitalized or had an incident, we would remind each other of our motto. I'd like to take time now to share some memories that I have with Laura. My early memories of Laura start in New York. I remember visiting her at her apartment and thinking her elevator was so cool. It was the kind that had a sliding birdcage door that one needed to shut before going up. And to a small child, this was fascinating. Laura liked to make Jess and me French toast, and we would play with her monkey stuffed animals that clasped together by Velcro. Our trip also included a visit to her best friend Linda's home, and there Jess and I would serenade the adults with songs and put on a show. I also remember seeing Laura at my grandparents' home in Great Neck and countless times in Shaker for holidays and family visits. In high school, Laura was there for me when I was sick, and she continued to be there for me in college. This was when our relationship really strengthened, and I will always be grateful to her for her support and unconditional love. Like most people's experience, college had its ups and downs, and when I needed someone to talk to on Sunday nights, Laura was my person. We would talk for hours and always end our conversation with our motto that I could get by because I was a strong Smith girl. After college, our relationship continued to grow. We traveled to Montreal, Quebec City, Paris, Israel, and Amsterdam together. In Chicago, we saw plays, went to the orchestra, and tried out many delicious restaurants like our favorite Ima. Laura and I always tried to have fun, and we would spice up life by wearing her jewelry, hats, purses, scarves, and more when we went out. I loved it, and I promised to continue to add the magic to life by accessorizing the way Laura did. This scarf that I'm wearing today was Laura's, and it's also one that I wore many days with her on our trip in Paris. In recent years, Laura spent a lot of time at my house with me and my children. Henry coined the term Nana when he was about 1, and it's one that has stuck with her. Nana helped a lot with Henry while David would go to D.C. for a week, and she spent half of each week during COVID at our house so that we could be together and also so that I could get a little break from childcare. When Amelia came along, Laura was thrilled to shop for girls' clothes. Laura loved the sophistication of Janie and Jack clothes, but of course would always get the items on sale. Anyone who knows Laura knows that she could only buy something if it were on sale. Laura's relationship with my children was a blessing, and it brought her so much joy to be with them. For her 75th birthday, I bought her a bracelet that said Nana, and she proudly wore it every day until recently when she misplaced it in the midst of packing and moving. I was so excited that Laura was going to be living nearby. We planned on having lunch together every Thursday, and I also planned to bring the kids to see her for a little bit each weekend. It's what I did growing up, visiting my Grandma Mickey and Aunt Ruth. It was a special part of my childhood that I will forever cherish, and I wanted my kids to experience that too. Laura's last few hours of life were happy, as she was with David, Henry, Amelia, and me, unpacking boxes in her new apartment. Laura was thrilled that we could come and help, and of course she had chocolate cake and ice cream waiting for the kids when they arrived. Henry and Amelia were excited and happy to see Nana's new place and help her unpack. Laura, David, and I were thankful that the kids were so small that they were able to crawl into the bottom of the boxes and pull out her belts, purses, and shoes. Laura was able to direct the kids where to put everything, and she was beyond thankful to David for his ability to break down the boxes and get them out of her apartment into the hall to be recycled. While we weren't unpacking, Laura was playing dolls with Amelia and talking to Henry about sleeping over. Henry was having so much fun that he said he wanted to stay the entire night and help her unpack. Tragically, the night took an awful turn, and Laura became ill and eventually passed away. But my kids will forever remember their Nana, and I'll think of her every day. Laura, I love you so much, and I promise to continue to be a strong Smith girl.
So I spent most of this past Sunday and Monday on the phone talking to the many of those on the very long list of Laura's friends to relay the news of her death. Many of you were utterly shocked. Many spoke through their tears. And very tellingly, almost all of you used the exact same phrase to describe her. That phrase, Laura was amazing. Well, when enough people say that, I figure you have to consider its merits. To be totally honest, I never considered using that descriptor for her. Maybe I'm just dense, but she was just my sister, and that's the way it always was. My childhood memories of Laura are about our constant fighting. Every day as young kids, we chased each other around the house, through the house, slamming doors, screaming, hitting and kicking each other. At our traditional family dinner each night, my parents knew better than to seat me next to her. But when we sat across from each other, I could still reach her and kick her. My parents thought that purchasing a punching bag for me, hoping that I would take all out my aggression on the punching bag and not my sister, it didn't work. Laura was unique. She was independent, highly intelligent, well-read, loved the arts, high fashion, and was beautiful both inside and out. She was fluent in French, Hebrew. Her wardrobe was exquisite and extensive. Hundreds of purses, pairs of shoes, scarves, rings, outfits. Right now, there are 75 boxes of unopened collectibles sitting in her new apartment. An important distinction is that, unlike many others, Laura's high fashion outfits, accoutrements, and exquisite objets d'art were not for show or to impress at all, but rather she appreciated and enjoyed their beauty. She was extremely warm and loving to Barbara, our daughters and their husbands, and then additionally my grandchildren. All were the joys of her life. She firmly internalized the values that she was taught by my parents: Judaism, honoring your family, tzedakah, and very generous giving to charity, and caring for the underrepresented. She worked exclusively in nonprofit organizations that aimed to help those in need. Laura loved to travel, and she did it extensively. But more than anything, as you may have surmised, Laura loved to shop. She could literally spend all day shopping. My gosh, consider that she lived a half a block from Chicago's Magnificent Mile. Nothing was better than traveling around the world in search of an item that was on sale. She appointed her apartment with furniture, unique artworks of Art Deco, and distinctive decorations from her travels. Laura was a worldly person. She traveled to Israel over 25 times and usually stopped in Europe on the way home. She lived all over the world: Cleveland, Boston, New York, Montreal, Israel, and finally Chicago. Unfortunately, she also lived in Stanford, California in 1981. That summer, Laura was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. My colleagues and I at the National Institutes of Health determined that Stanford University offered the best approach to that disease, and so she, along with my mother, moved to Palo Alto for Laura's treatment, prolonged treatment. Using a variety of modalities, her lymphoma was totally cured, but unfortunately 30 years later, the radiation treatments that were determined to have caused scarring of her heart and lungs, and ultimately led to her demise. At age 50, she developed rheumatoid arthritis, and I told her that I was intimately familiar with a local rheumatologist. I was her behind-the-scenes concierge physician for the next 25 years. Nevertheless, throughout all her major illnesses, she never complained, never, and always maintained the attitude that it could be worse. Laura would do anything for those she loved. After my dad died, Laura uprooted herself from Montreal and moved back to Cleveland to provide comfort to my grieving mom. She took a job here as director of the Hillel at Case Western Reserve University, and even though she was not thrilled with making the move, she did so anyway. Another illustration was when Jessica was having difficulty living in Belgium. Laura called her and said, "If you want, I'll take a flight tomorrow and be there. And she was serious. Laura routinely joined us on family vacations. About 2 years ago, Rachel, Jessica, Barbara, Laura, and I went to Belgium and Amsterdam. We met her Dutch friends, toured the art museums, cruised the canals. One day, Laura had important shopping to do. We didn't want to join her. So Laura went off with her 20-page notebook of her battle plan on a 6-mile walk to visit her pre-designated jewelry and high-fashion establishments. At the airport, she had quite the VAT refund awaiting her. This past summer, we celebrated her 75th birthday at our traditional vacation by Lake Michigan. We surprised her by all of us wearing identical T-shirts that we created with humorous designer-related phrases imprinted on them. Luckily, this past Thanksgiving, we celebrated Hanukkah a month early so that we could all be together, and we donned matching Hanukkah pajamas. We had a great time, and I'm so glad that we have photos and memories of the 11 of us being together. All in all, over the past few days, I've come to realize that those who I spoke with are correct. Laura was an amazing person.
I had the opportunity to learn about Laura from some of the people who loved her most and knew her best in the world. I think I got to learn a lot about the way that she worked, the way that she was. It sounds to me that Laura was a person of great conviction. She was a strong progressive Democrat, a liberal feminist, an activist, and a donor. Laura generously gave tzedakah, or righteous giving, to the causes she felt were important. And she had enough chutzpah to have difficult and direct conversations. She would see a stranger wearing the name of a conservative politician and engage them in conversations to get them to change their minds, even on the L. Barbara said she was very serious about things and when something mattered to her, and that she softened over the years but stayed outspoken. She sounds like the kind of person I would really love. Laura said what was on her mind using a clear, direct voice. She loved a good fight and even toyed with a business idea called Leave It for Laura. If you needed someone to spend the whole day on the phone advocating for you with your insurance company or had some other sort of unappealing or lengthy phone call to make, Laura would take care of it for you, waiting on hold in your place and getting the job done. She didn't just have conviction, she was also deeply devoted to her family. She was very close with especially her mom, Mickey, and cherished her relationships, as you've heard, with her nieces and their children, and seeing her great nieces and nephews as her own grandchildren. From the typical days of early siblinghood, Laura grew to see Howard not as just the little brother kicking her under the table at dinner, but came to appreciate him for his medical expertise and caring advice. She trusted you, Howard, to help her navigate her health care as an advocate and a guide. She loved to travel alone, but also with her beloved family, making so many memories in the places you've heard about. Jess, you shared memories of a time when you were visiting Laura in New York. Accustomed to long, quick walks by herself, she underestimated how long it would take to get you across Central Park when you were about Marlowe's age. And you remember the race across the park, but also the way the story seemed to stick in the family lore. Laura will be lovingly remembered as the dishwasher at family gatherings, a true helper whose efforts to help her nieces when visiting their homes will be remembered as actually helpful and not at all condescending. A hard balance. Her loving hands would help clean and tidy, helping to bring order where order was needed. She wasn't just a good helper, though. She was compassionate and caring, willing to drop what she was doing for family time. Jessie shared the story about when you were feeling blue in Brussels, and she was eager to do a welfare check to take your mind off of things and also, I think, to do some shopping in Europe. She knew the importance of being present with her people and was happy to spend the time in Chicago with Rachel's family and Boston and then Cleveland with Jess's. Rachel, you told me about how her practice was to walk the 3 miles to work in the morning and then walk the 3 miles home in the evening. And it sounded to me like she lived her life in training for those big trips, the adventures she enjoyed. Between her long walks, her speed walking, and her Pilates practice, she kept herself active. She lived frugally, working all of those great systems to get travel points and miles, and invested her finances in traveling near and far. Her 75th birthday party, complete with those fancy matching t-shirts, was a particular joy for all involved. And her trip to Amsterdam with the whole Smith family that you just heard about let her put her travel Bible to good use. Laura would compile lengthy travel Bibles, she called them, before each trip, documenting the museums and the stores she had planned to visit. She was a careful and passionate collector with a great sense of style and a deep appreciation for beauty. She didn't buy based on label. Instead, Laura carefully curated a collection of items whose beauty she appreciated and used. When traveling, she would buy souvenirs, collectible memories, like the scarves that you see a few of us wearing today. Her method was clever because whenever she would use a particular item, she could recall the trip, the experience, the celebration that went with it. It was a chance to relive those moments and to revisit those places in her mind. Between work and her other commitments, she traveled to Israel over 20 times and visiting places like her favorite Paris, where she could use her fluent French. She did graduate school at Bar Ilan in Israel and was proud to speak Hebrew with almost no American accent. Her Jewish identity was of the utmost importance to her. She felt herself a Jew above even an American and was deeply proud of that fact. Jess and Rachel, you shared with me how she used to lead the Passover Seder when you were kids, how she'd sit at the head of the table very seriously and bring her supplemental paperwork to make sure things went just right. She also introduced the feminist idea of an orange on the Seder plate to the family celebration. She felt so connected to Israel, staying in touch with her friends from her days at Bar Ilan and those she met later. She wore a yellow ribbon to raise awareness of the horrendous aftermath of the events of October 7th, and in fact, that ribbon is still on her coat. She lived to see the news of the fragile ceasefire that is underway, and I hope that news brought her a sense of hope and relief. Laura was the one who helped bring Jewish traditions to life for her family, including buying the tali tot for the girls' benot mitzvah, the ketubas for their weddings, and mezuzot for their homes. She rejoiced in the way her great-nephews and nieces were named for loved ones and appreciated that Judaism wasn't taken for granted by her family. She was a member of a conservative congregation in Chicago and worked as a Jewish professional throughout her entire career, leading places like Hillel and the Jewish United Fund in Chicago. She was an intellectual and well-read lifelong learner who spent lots of time learning on Zoom in recent years, signing up for classes and studying Musar, a Jewish movement started in part by one of her own ancestors. Musar is a Jewish practice that focuses on ethics and personal growth. It's a study of midot, or measures, that each one of us has within us. When I was thinking about Laura and her life, two particular midot spoke to me: chasidut, devotion, and netzach, perseverance. Throughout her life, Laura showed her devotion to her family. She also demonstrated an incredible amount of resilience and tenacity. Netzach can also mean to last because it's the midah, the measure of how well we can rise above adversity. Laura lived an incredible, independent, and enriching life. She had family connections that mattered to her, strong, lasting friendships, meaningful work, and abundant opportunities to take in the wonders of the world. She also had difficult health situations, which were objectively challenging. Howard, you shared that even just a few days ago, she would say things like, "I could be worse," or a certain situation could have been worse. Her perspective was one of gratitude, and I think one of great strength. She was able to see the life she lived as one that was full and fulfilling, a life she herself designed. Her conviction allowed her to focus on the way the world should be, and her agency and generosity allowed her opportunities to do her part in making that vision a reality. In Hebrew, the word netzach is connected with eternity. As we accompany Laura to her final resting place today, we continue what her eternal legacy will be. She will be remembered for her generosity and the way she gave of her money and her time and her presence. She will be remembered for her compassion, the way she relocated to help take care of her mom after her dad died, the way she showed up for her family when they needed her or wanted her, and the way she showed kindness to those around her. Laura will be remembered for her devotion, the way she was a reliable and steadfast support, and she will be remembered for her resilience, the way she faced her challenges and lived life fully. We honor our departed loved ones when we live up to the values they embodied. In the days ahead, we will strive to be generous, devoted, and resilient, like Laura Susan Smith. Then, Zichrona Livracha, we know her memory will be for us an enduring blessing. In this moment of our service, we prepare to recite the words of El Malei Rachamim, or God full of mercy. In this memorial prayer, we ask that the soul of our loved one, Laura Smith, enter into eternity and find peaceful rest. This prayer invokes the image of our loved ones being carried under the wings of God's presence, Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah. That loving, protective presence will, God willing, accompany Laura's soul to a state of perfect peace. When we come to the conclusion of our chapel service here today, we'll accompany Laura to her final resting place at Mount Olive Cemetery. Our ceremony there will be dignified but brief due to the extreme temperatures. Shiva will be observed only today from 2 to 4:30 and 6 to 8:30 at the home of Howard and Barbara Smith, 23969 Duffield Road in Shaker, with a Shiva Minyan tonight at 7 p.m. Those who wish to make contributions in her memory may do so to the Musar Institute or to the New Israel Fund. I invite you to please rise if you're able. El Malei Rachamim Shochen Mamromim Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah Im Gedoshim Utehorim Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim Et nishmat Sarah Leah bat Yitzchak uMiriam shehalcha leolama Baal harachamim yastireha V'seter kenafav leolamim V'yitzror bitzror hachayim et nishmata Adonai hu nachalata V'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava Then Omar, Amen. God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one who has gone into eternity find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and pure whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold her close to you forever, so that her soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May she find a home with you, and may she rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. In a moment, our directors will help us transition.
Matthew? Right here.